such an incendiary issue in the media was that when the issue first came up, it was stated by we, I believe, and certainly the Prime Minister's office, that his family were not paid at all, which I find very surprising that that was said. And Madame Douglas, who was the chair of the board, specifically asked if any payments were made to members of the Trudeau family, and were told by the Kielburgers that no payments were made, which I also find is extraordinary because it then came out in the media that upwards over $300,000 have been paid to Margaret Trudeau and Sasha Trudeau. When that news broke, were you surprised that people had been saying they were not being paid when you would have been negotiating fees for them to get paid?
You know, I wasn't sure what to think of it. There's different entities, as you know, it's a complex structure. So these speaking engagements were paid not through the charity, but through, I think, B2B social enterprises, if I have the name correct. So and she was actually quite upset by the letter. She said that it was an illegal request, that if we complied with the request, we would be breaking Canadian law. We would be violating our clients' privacy rights. So I was surprised that a member of this committee would ask us to do that, to contravene Canadian law. But what was more surprising was that the letter, I received the letter, it was the morning of August 27th, and at the same time I received it, I also received a letter from a journalist, a reporter from the Canadian Press, attaching a copy of the letter, asking for my comment. So I was actually confused and baffled how a reporter has a letter that was sent to me that I haven't even had a chance to read yet. And, you know, we don't have time to get into it, but, you know, a series of events that happened after that put us in a really difficult situation, something that I've never experienced before. And, you know, as a leader of a small company, I feel that, you know, my first obligation is to ensure the physical, emotional, and mental health, safety, and well-being of our employees. And for the first time in my 25-year career, I was in a situation where I didn't feel that I could properly protect everyone from what was going on. We had to get the police involved. It was a really nasty situation.
Mr. Perlmutter, did you feel that you were being intimidated by a member of Parliament?
I definitely felt like we were being intimidated. Yes.
Thank you.
It was frankly quite shocking, to be completely honest. Okay. If the letter was sent to us privately, we could have responded privately, and that should have been the end of it. And we could have given our response, which was that we were prohibited by law from doing what was asked of us. But because it was thrust into the public sphere, we didn't have that opportunity to respond. And so we've been dealing with the ramifications of that for the past 3 months now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Perlmutter. That's all the time we have. We're a little over time. I want. Now on to Mr. Angus for 6 minutes.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate both organizations coming. And as part of our committee, I want to make it clear that there's no, your presence here does not mean that you are involved in having done anything wrong. This has been a very complex issue. There's a lot of questions, and so my interest is to get clarification on details from you. So when I ask you questions, I don't want you to feel that we're judging you or believing you did something wrong. We need to get some answers here to clarify this. So Mr. Perlmutter, thank you for supplying those documents, and they end in 2013. So that was the end of your working relationship with Madame Gregoire Trudeau at that point, because she did a number of other WE events. She wasn't involved in your organization after 2013?
That's right. We were not involved in any events with her after 2013.
Thank you for that. Now, I think part what made this question so such an incendiary issue in the media was that when the issue first came up, it was stated by we, I believe, and certainly the Prime Minister's office, that his family were not paid at all, which I find very surprising that that was said. And Madame Douglas, who was the chair of the board, specifically asked if any payments were made to members of the Trudeau family, and were told by the Kielburgers that no payments were made, which I also find is extraordinary because it then came out in the media that upwards over $300,000 have been paid to Margaret Trudeau and Sasha Trudeau. When that news broke, were you surprised that people had been saying they were not being paid when you would have been negotiating fees for them to get paid?
You know, I wasn't sure what to think of it. There's different entities, as you know, it's a complex structure. So these speaking engagements were paid not through the charity, but through, I think, Meadowy Social Enterprises, if I have the name correct. So my understanding was that they were saying that the charity didn't pay the speakers, but it was a different entity. It was a social enterprise. But that was my understanding of that.
But the charity did make one of those, at least one payment, correct?
There may have been one. I don't recall off the top of my head, but I think there may have been one.
Who was the point person you dealt with that week for arranging Margaret Trudeau and Sasha Trudeau's events?
So Mark Kielburger was the person that I dealt with initially, and then logistics were coordinated by someone on our team and someone on their team.
Okay, thank you very much. That's very helpful. I'm interested because when we had the Kielburgers at committee and we asked them why, they said nobody was paid, or also why we found out they were being paid when all the other speakers were supposed to be volunteers for the way we worked. They said that Margaret and Sasha weren't paid to public speak, even though Margaret's very well known as a mental health speaker. She was paid for the ancillary events afterwards. So was that written into the contracts, these after events?
Yeah, so the agreements for those engagements were quite involved. There was a number of events. So normally when a speaker does an event, they speak and there might be a reception or a meet and greet, and that's sort of it. Usually the commitment's a couple of hours. Right. These events had numerous receptions, dinners, meet and greets, and so forth. So everything was included and detailed in the agreement, and it was a requirement that the individual would participate in all of those events.
Yeah. No, I actually have some copies of some of WE's ancillary event planning, and it is very complex because this is where they were really trying to work the corporate angles. So that would have been worked out as part of their. They would come, they would speak, and then there would be these obligations to work the corporate event, and that would have been laid out in the contracts then.
Right. Usually they came in, I think, the night before, the day before, because I think there was usually a dinner the day before the event or the night before the event, and then a number of things happening the day of the event.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I have a question for National PR. To clarify, I was a little confused this morning. I believe that you said that you were hired by WE for communications and media in Quebec. Is that your only obligation? You weren't there to actually try and build their grassroots organization in Quebec?
Vous l'avez bien précisé.
Answer to be clear. Yes, it was to communicate information about the existence of the program with nonprofits as well as with students. So it was a communications mandate, essentially.
Because I find that's very surprising because Madame Alwade from WE was asked specifically about this issue, I think by one of the Liberals on August 13th at the Finance Committee. And she said National PR was hired to assist us in the process to reach out to Francophone and Quebec organizations, especially in the area of engagement for not-profit organizations. Is that not true?
Yes, this is what we started to do on the 25th of May.
So you were engaged in working with them to find the nonprofit organizations. So it wasn't just communications, you were actually finding the nonprofit organizations, as Ms. Alwadi had stated at Finance.
The objective was to pass out information. It was to inform the most organizations. So yes, we did have to identify the organizations that could be situated in both rural and urban areas. And during our mandate, we had to be able to identify them, to be able to come into communications with them to ensure that they would be able to be aware of the existence of the program.
In fact, we're over, but I wanted the witness to be able to complete their answer for you, Mr. Angus. We're going to the second round now, and the second round is only 5 minutes. Monsieur Gord pour 5 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the witnesses for being here this morning to be able to bring light on this question. The first question is for you, Mr. Daresh. I'm very pleased to hear that you said that there weren't any financial losses between the 22nd and the 25th of May. You were able to establish the mandate and the contract. Was it an hourly fee, or was it just a global mandate? It was a normal contract. We were paid for the hours that our professionals would be working. So this was an hourly contract. Well, I was very pleased that you were paid, because the Canadian taxpayers paid the We Charity. So if you hadn't been paid, that would be even worse. So would it be possible for you to provide the contract that you signed with the We Charity either later today or later in the week? Yes, I will be very pleased to answer your questions with respect to the mandate. However, if you're asking to share our service offering, this is not a document that I can volunteer to share with you, and I can explain why. This is a contract between two organizations that are private organizations and that have information that are of a commercial nature, which is very sensitive information for us, for a company as ours. It has to our company.
News and greetings by Canadians for Canadians. Today's Space Cafe. Have a good